They say time heals all wounds, but what if time only hides them deeper? The night my father-in-law chuckled across the dinner table and asked, "So Adam, still clicking buttons for a living?" I smiled politely. Again. That was my life with the Whitakers. Every Sunday, every holiday, every gathering. No matter how many magazines featured my photography, how many awards lined my studio in Charleston, South Carolina, they never saw me as more than a distraction in their daughter's otherwise perfect life. My name's Adam Blake. I'm 35, and I've been married to Clara for nearly 7 years. We met at a local art fair where she admired my black and white landscapes, and I admired her honesty. She worked in nonprofit housing reform and had this way of listening to people that made them feel seen, unlike her parents. From day one, her mother Evelyn was syrupy sweet with passive digs baked into every compliment. Her father, Robert, was a retired military officer turned business consultant who believed only in two things: order and money. Clara's brother, Mark, got a free pass for every failure. I, on the other hand, was scrutinized for every success. But I loved Clara, and I believed, naively, that love would be enough. For 5 years I showed up. I brought wine. I fixed their porch light. I designed their Christmas cards. I stayed silent when Robert asked if I planned to get a real job before we had kids. Clara always apologized after. "They'll come around," she'd whisper. "They're just old-fashioned." But it wasn't old-fashioned. It was control dressed up as concern. The final straw came one snowy Sunday in January. Evelyn, ever the perfect hostess, handed me a warm cup of cocoa with a wink. "Made this just for you, darling." I thanked her, but something about the way she looked at me, the way her fingers trembled slightly as she handed over the mug, it all felt off. I glanced across the room. Robert's cocoa sat untouched on the tray. Something inside me twisted. For the first time in years, I paused, not out of politeness, but out of fear. How far would you go to protect your child from someone you don't approve of? And how far is too far? For anyone who's ever watched their children grow up, fall in love, and make choices you wouldn't have made, at what point does concern become control? And if silence protects the peace, does it also enable the poison? I didn't drink the cocoa. Instead, I excused myself and quietly set the mug beside Robert's. No one noticed. Evelyn was too busy entertaining Clara with stories from her book club, filtered gossip wrapped in pearls and Chardonnay. Robert was absorbed in a Sunday football recap, grumbling about the state of modern quarterbacks. I didn't know what I was avoiding exactly. Maybe nothing. Maybe something worse. But my gut told me one thing. Trust is a currency, and Evelyn had gone bankrupt with me long ago. Clara and I left early. I told her I wasn't feeling well. That part wasn't a lie. The next day, Robert called Clara from urgent care. Violent nausea, cold sweats, dizziness. The doctors blamed bad shellfish, even though we'd had pot roast and mashed potatoes. Evelyn chalked it up to stress. "You know how sensitive your father is," she said, but that's not what gnawed at me. It was Evelyn's reaction. She didn't seem surprised. She didn't fuss or flutter. She simply nodded, almost calmly. Something in that stillness chilled me. That night, while Clara slept, I retrieved the mug I'd taken home and poured what remained into a clean glass vial. Just in case. I wasn't paranoid. I was cautious. Because here's the thing about people who smile too much. They're either genuinely joyful or hiding a knife behind their back. I knew which one Evelyn was. The next morning, I drove 2 hours to Columbia to see an old client, Dr. Randall Klein, a chemist I'd done some portfolio work for during a pharmaceutical campaign. He owed me a favor. "Run a panel on this?" I asked, handing him the sample. "No names, just tell me if anything's off." He gave me a long look. You think someone tried to drug you? I think I'd like to know before I guess. 3 days later, Randall called. His voice was flat. Benzodiazepines, traces of lorazepam, enough to sedate you for a few hours, cause confusion, even memory loss. Nothing lethal, but definitely not cocoa powder. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. I stared at my phone for almost an hour, turning the information over like a loose tooth. I could call Clara, tell her everything. But what would that do? She loved her parents, still believed that beneath the surface they meant well. If I brought her this truth too early, it would shatter her, and maybe shatter us. So I did what I do best. I watched, and I waited. In the days that followed, I paid closer attention. Evelyn's slips, once subtle, now felt calculated. She'd forget to include me in dinner conversations. Ask Clara to fetch things when I spoke about upcoming gallery work. Once, she asked, "Do you think Adam would mind if Clara went back to school for her MBA? Just something more practical." She always used that word, practical, like my life's work was a child's dream instead of a career that paid our mortgage and fed our future. And still, I said nothing, because I needed more than instinct. I needed a pattern, a motive, a history. That's when I started digging into her prescriptions, into her social circle, into the stories the family never spoke about. And I found more than I bargained for. I found 3 overlapping prescriptions for anti-anxiety meds. I found a neighbor who said Evelyn once blacked out at a charity function. I found whispers of missing jewelry, of mood swings, of quiet family cover-ups. But the worst? I found out this wasn't the first time she'd tried to handle someone who didn't meet her standards. It was just the first time someone fought back. I had always believed silence was the high road, that staying quiet meant I was being the better man, the calmer husband, the patient outsider waiting to be welcomed in. But silence wasn't noble, it was complicit, and Evelyn counted on that. So I stopped being quiet. The first thing I did was make a digital folder. I filled it with every prescription record I could find, 3 active doctors, overlapping lorazepam and clonazepam prescriptions, red flags all over. I scanned emails she'd sent Clara that subtly questioned our relationship. Is Adam supporting you emotionally? Do you think you're settling? There were patterns in those words, like fingerprints she couldn't stop leaving behind. I knew I couldn't go to Clara yet. Not with just that. Her mother could still talk her way out of anything. I needed irrefutable proof, visual, emotional, undeniable. I needed someone who had lived it. So I reached out to someone I never thought I'd speak to again, Caleb Fisher. Caleb had been Clara's fiancé before me. She never talked about why it ended, only that it ended badly. But I remembered something her college roommate once said. Clara didn't leave Caleb, her family made her. I found him through a non-profit architecture firm in Denver. I sent a short email. "Hi, you don't know me, but I think something similar happened to both of us. I'm Clara's husband. Please hear me out." He responded within a day. We scheduled a Zoom call. Caleb looked older, more grounded than the photos Clara once showed me. There was hesitation in his eyes, but when I explained what had happened, about the cocoa, the test results, Evelyn's prescriptions, his face changed, not surprised, just tired. "They told Clara I was cheating," he said. "They showed her a fake email, some screenshots they said came from my phone. I tried to explain, I begged. But her mom cried. Her dad said they had proof." After a while, Clara stopped picking up my calls. I asked him for evidence, anything that could prove Evelyn and Robert had interfered. He sent me a string of emails, his real ones, showing how he tried to explain. The tone was sincere, desperate even, full of clarity that didn't match the story Evelyn had painted. Then came the final piece. A voicemail Clara had left Caleb months after their breakup. Her voice cracked as she apologized. "I don't know what to believe anymore," she said. "I feel like I lost something real, and I let them talk me out of it." I added it to the folder. Next, I called Andrea, Clara's former best friend, who had abruptly stopped visiting after our wedding. We reconnected through social media, and after some reluctance, she admitted Evelyn had told her she was a bad influence and that Clara needed to focus on building a stable home. The pattern was clear. Anyone who didn't fit Evelyn's mold, anyone who supported Clara's independence, was surgically removed from her life. And now, it was my turn. But this time, I had something Evelyn wasn't expecting. Allies. Vanessa, my sister-in-law, had always been quiet at family gatherings, but I remembered her glance across the table the night Robert fell ill. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. So I called her. "You saw what happened, didn't you?" I asked. She didn't deny it. She came over the next evening after putting her son to bed. We sat on the back porch, and for the first time, she opened up. "They did it to me too," she said. "When Mark and I were dating, Evelyn said I wasn't the right kind of woman. Robert said I was after their money. They tried to turn Mark against me." "How did you stay?" I asked. "I didn't. Not really. I just kept quiet. But I see what it's doing to you, and I know what it almost did to me." She handed me a small flash drive. "What's this?" I asked. "Security footage from the night of the cocoa. You're in the kitchen. So is Evelyn. I thought you might need it." I added the video to the folder. At this point, I wasn't just protecting myself. I was building a case. Not a legal one. A personal one. For Clara. I needed her to see, not just what they had done to me, but what they had done to her. The lies, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the quiet campaign to keep her tethered, small, obedient. And I needed to show her that love doesn't always come in soft voices and warm cocoa. Sometimes it comes in hard truths and difficult choices. It wasn't just a folder anymore. It was a reckoning. And I was done waiting. I didn't tell Clara everything right away. I needed the right moment, one where she wouldn't just hear the evidence but feel the weight of it. That moment came on a quiet Thursday night. She'd just gotten home from work, tired, her shoulders hunched the way they always were after visiting her parents alone. She dropped her keys into the ceramic bowl near the door. "Mom thinks we should take a break," she said, avoiding my eyes. "She says maybe some time apart would give us both clarity." There it was. I took a deep breath, walked to the living room, and returned with the USB drive. I handed it to her without a word and sat down across from her, knees apart, elbows on my thighs. My heart felt like it was working overtime. "What's this?" she asked. "Everything." She hesitated, but plugged it into her laptop. The first video played. Evelyn in the kitchen, alone, opening her purse, slipping something into a cup. Me entering. Her switching expressions too fast to be innocent. The second video, Robert drinking from the cup meant for me. The subtle panic in Evelyn's face when she realized what happened. The third, her screaming at Robert after we left, furious he drank the wrong one. Then came the emails, her old ones, carefully worded but sharp. The voicemail to Caleb, the screenshots from Andrea, the prescription logs, the list of former friends who all coincidentally vanished from Clara's life when Evelyn got involved. Clara didn't move the entire time, just watched. When the last file ended, she closed the laptop slowly, her face pale. She looked at me like she'd just stepped out of a cave into blinding daylight. Where did you get all of this?" she whispered. "From the people your parents tried to erase. From the people who still cared enough to speak." She swallowed hard. Her hands were shaking. "You think I didn't know something was wrong?" I didn't answer. The question was rhetorical. "I ignored it," she continued. I made excuses for them. I told myself they were trying to protect me, that they just didn't understand you. Or me. She stood, pacing now. All those times Mom forgot to invite Andrea to Christmas, when she told me Caleb was lying, when she said you were draining my potential. I thought it was just concern. She looked back at me. It wasn't, was it? No, I said softly. It was control. She sat down beside me, knees touching, eyes wet. I'm sorry, she said, for not seeing it sooner, for letting them get between us. I shook my head. It's not your fault, Clara. That's what they do. They twist love into obligation. They make you think they're helping while cutting you off from anything they can't command. Silence fell between us like a heavy curtain, but it wasn't the kind that hurt. It was the kind that allowed truth to settle in. Do Mark and Vanessa know? She asked. Vanessa does. She's the one who gave me the video. She said your parents tried to break them too. Clara nodded slowly, lips pressed tight. I believe it. Then for the first time in weeks, she reached for my hand and didn't let go. The next day, she called Mark and Vanessa and invited them over for dinner. No parents, no lies, just the four of us. I set up the TV before they arrived, connected the laptop, poured glasses of wine. Clara didn't ask me to remove anything from the folder. She wanted Mark to see it all. When they arrived, Mark was guarded, defensive even. I don't know what this is about, he muttered. You will, Clara said quietly, pressing play. As the evidence unfolded, Mark's expression shifted from skepticism to discomfort to something close to rage. By the end, his shoulders were slumped forward and his face was pale. Mom told me you were struggling with anxiety, he said to Vanessa, voice hollow. She said you weren't stable. Vanessa stared at him. And you believed her. He didn't answer, but his silence said enough. That night, after they left, Clara turned to me on the couch and said, We have to confront them. Together. They won't stop unless we make them. I nodded. I'll film it, I said. We arrived at the Whitaker house on a cool Sunday evening, just as the sky turned lavender behind the pine trees. Clara was quiet beside me in the passenger seat, her jaw set tight, her hands folded in her lap like they were bracing for impact. Vanessa and Mark followed in their car, parking right behind us. Clara didn't wait for me to open her door. She walked straight to the porch. Evelyn opened the door with a practiced smile, all pearl earrings and faux concern. Darling, what a surprise, she said. Then she saw all of us, and her face froze. What's going on? We need to talk, Clara said. All of us. Living room. Now. Robert appeared behind her, holding a tumbler of bourbon. He arched an eyebrow. This seems dramatic. You haven't seen dramatic yet, Clara replied coldly. I carried in my camera bag and tripod. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. What's that for? She asked. We're documenting this conversation, I said, casually setting it up. For the family archive. This is ridiculous, Robert snapped. We are not being filmed like criminals in our own home. Clara stood in front of the lens and stared directly into it. Then you should have acted like family. I hit record. What followed was 2 hours of truth that had waited far too long to be spoken. Clara laid out the manipulation, the sabotage, the emotional strangulation masked as parenting. I played the footage. Evelyn's hand shaking as she poured the drug into my cup. The screaming match with Robert afterward. The video where they plotted to fracture our marriage. The emails, the voicemails, the patterns of destruction they disguised as love. Robert denied everything at first. Evelyn sobbed, tried to blame confusion, misunderstanding, miscommunication. You drugged my husband, Mom, Clara said sharply. You tried to make him miss his own gallery opening so I'd think he was unreliable. How do you spin that? You don't understand, Evelyn said, voice cracking. We were protecting you. He's not strong enough. He's not one of us. Thank God he's not, Clara snapped. Mark sat still through most of it. But when I played the clip of Evelyn saying she was already planting seeds in Clara's head to get her to file for divorce, he stood up suddenly. "You did the same thing with us," he said, eyes blazing. "You made me question everything Vanessa did. You told me she was unstable. You tried to make me leave her, just like you tried with Caleb, and now Adam." "I was trying to help you both," Evelyn insisted. "No," Vanessa said. "You were trying to control us, like puppets." There was a long silence, the kind that comes when everything rotten has finally been dragged into the light and there's nothing left to do but stare at it. Then Clara stood up and walked to the camera. She looked straight into the lens. "My name is Clara Whitaker Blake," she said, "and I will no longer be manipulated by anyone, especially not my own parents." She turned the camera off. Evelyn's shoulders slumped. Robert just stared, like he didn't recognize the people standing in front of him. Before we left, I placed a USB drive on the coffee table. "This contains everything," I said. "The videos, the emails, the testimonies. We're not using it. Yet. But if you ever try to interfere in our marriage again, if you ever lie to Clara about me or anyone else, this doesn't stay private." Robert picked it up like it was a live grenade. "You think you've won something here?" he growled. "No," I said. "We didn't win. We reclaimed something, her independence, my dignity, our life." Vanessa stood behind me, her chin lifted. Mark, pale but resolute, nodded. We left without another word. That night, Clara and I sat on the floor of our living room with the windows open and the world outside finally quiet. "They'll never admit it," she whispered. "They'll never say sorry." "They don't have to," I said. "We didn't do this for them. We did it for us." She leaned against me, her fingers curling around mine. "We did the right thing," she said. And for the first time in years, I truly believed her. The fallout was eerily quiet. There were no angry follow-up calls, no threats, no desperate apologies, just silence. Evelyn didn't call, Robert didn't text. It was as if we'd ceased to exist in their curated world of polite denial and porcelain smiles. And honestly, it was peaceful. Clara and I used that silence to rebuild. We started small. No more Sunday dinners. No more checking in with Evelyn before making life decisions. Clara unfollowed her mother's social media accounts. I deleted their numbers. And for the first time in years, our home stopped feeling like enemy territory and started to feel like sanctuary. Still, the damage lingered. Clara began therapy, alone at first. Then we went together. The sessions were raw, messy. Some days she cried for who she had been taught to be. Other days she screamed at the versions of herself that believed love had to be earned by obedience. But through it all, she never lost sight of what mattered: us. "I spent most of my life trying to be a daughter they'd approve of," she told our therapist one morning, eyes glossy. "And I lost pieces of myself in the process." She looked at me then. "I don't want to lose anything else." Around that time, Vanessa messaged us with unexpected news. Evelyn and Robert had started showing up to family events, subdued. They brought store-bought food instead of trying to control the menu. They sat near the back, didn't ask probing questions. Once, Evelyn even complimented a photo of Vanessa and Mark without the usual snide remark about lighting or clothes. "I don't know what you did," Vanessa said, "but it worked." "We didn't change them," Clara replied. "We changed the rules." Then, something we never expected happened. A certified letter arrived from Robert's law office. Inside was a deed. The house we'd been renting for 3 years, our home, was now in our name, paid in full. Attached was a trust fund document for a future child. No conditions, no clawbacks, no footnotes in fine print. There was no letter, no explanation, just legal paperwork and silence. I stared at it for a long time. It's not an apology, I said finally. But it's something. Clara nodded. It's not love either, she added. But maybe it's respect. Or maybe surrender. Either way, we signed the documents. It didn't fix everything, but it proved one thing. They knew the war was over. And they'd lost. That spring, I opened my first gallery space in downtown Charleston. Friends flew in from Seattle, New York, even Toronto. Clara stood beside me at the opening, smiling, not just with her lips, but with her whole body. Light again. Free. Evelyn and Robert came too. They didn't stay long. They walked through the gallery slowly, pausing at each photo, their expressions unreadable. Evelyn held out a hand at the end. "Congratulations, Adam. Your work speaks." Robert said nothing, but he nodded. Once. That was enough. When they left, Clara looked at me. "Do you think they've changed?" I shook my head. "No," I said, "but they know we have." And that, finally, was enough. As we grow older, we often find ourselves believing that wisdom justifies control, that experience gives us the right to direct the lives of those we love. But this story is a powerful reminder. Love and control are not the same. The hardest part of aging gracefully is accepting that your children are not extensions of your identity. They are individuals with their own paths, values, and choices. Trying to shape their journey through manipulation or guilt only drives them away. True respect means letting go, not of love, but of ownership. It means trusting that you raised them to think for themselves, even if their lives don't look like yours. For those in later chapters of life, the lesson is this: influence is not earned by force, but by presence, humility, and consistency. Relationships thrive when they are rooted in trust, not in fear. And sometimes, the most healing gift you can give your child is not advice or correction, but quiet, unwavering support. In the end, legacy isn't about control. It's about how people remember how you made them feel, and whether they felt safe to be exactly who they are.